All right, welcome back to Dark Hours Bright Future. I'm your host, Ohm.
And I'm your host, Dylan.
Um, and yeah, welcome back to another solo episode. Today we're going to be talking about turning 20. And this goes out to people turning 20 or obviously entering their 20s, but also more so like entering different age brackets because there's always that point in life where you're switching between ages and you're kind of reflecting on your past. And we just wanted to get into it because Dylan is turning 20 soon. So how does it
Yeah.
feel, man?
I don't know. I think for me, I kind of view turning 20 as actually not just 20, but just all my birthdays. I just view it as just another day passing by. For me personally, I don't look down on people who celebrate their birthdays. I don't mind going to other people's birthday parties. In fact, I think it's fun. But for me personally, I don't like to have a birthday party because it's just another day for me, another year passing by. But I think for me too, though, as of right now, this birthday, 20, it hits different for some reason, I think. Um, Obviously it officially marks the 2 decades of me being alive, so that's pretty significant, and I also, when I turned 18, I think the realization of time or the fear of time really started to kick in for me, and for these past 2 years, I have been kind of dealing with that fear in a way and kind of coping with it, but I think and I've gotten better as time goes on. I've become more. I mean, the only thing you can do is accept time, right? Time passing by. It doesn't stop for anybody, but for me personally, I think this birthday holds a lot of heart, holds a lot of value, and holds a lot of weight to it. But overall, I feel calm though. I don't feel like scared or worried as most people would as they get older. I mean, I think it's very common for both. Well, it's been common for us too. I've heard other kids our age. I mean, you're older than me by 1 year, but I mean, I imagine you've been
Mm-hmm.
around other kids, you know, who also have turned 20 like you and who are scared about growing up, this fear of growing up, this fear of getting older, this fear of time passing by. But for me, I don't feel that way at all. Luckily, maybe I will feel that way when I actually do turn 20 within the week or so. But as of right now, I feel calm. I don't feel different at all. I feel mentally, I still feel like I'm a high schooler, like a grown high
Okay.
schooler. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you turned 20, so how did you feel?
Um,
Well, you're already 20. I mean,
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm about to turn 21 soon. So, I mean, I've kind of already settled in. But when I did turn 20, definitely I was kind of, I was kind of the opposite you. I wasn't panicking, but I was definitely like, wow, like, I do have a problem with looking into the past and I'm working on it. But, I was, you know, it was my birthday's during summer. So, like, I'm not around anybody usually. During the summers, I'm pretty much alone like most of the time, just because all our friends have jobs or we're working on our own projects and stuff. But I sat back and reflected, and I was like, I'll never be 18 again. you know when I was 18 and 17, like, I still had, basically, like, when I turned like 19, that's when I was like started having a little more responsibilities than previously. But yeah, when I was 17, 18, all I had to worry about was whether I was going to make it to a place on time to hang out with my friends, or whether I had enough money in the account to go eat out at In and Out or something. You know, I didn't really have school. Obviously school. Like, I was focusing on school, but school, it's like it's not as stressful as it is now because obviously I have to worry about post school. Like, what am I going to do after I graduate from college? But yeah, just that time was like I just had no responsibilities, and now once I have a little more responsibilities, health problems like we've talked about on multiple podcasts. Um, you know, the uncertainties are starting to roll in, and it's like I'll never have no responsibilities ever again. And that was kind of settling in with me. Like, this is getting a little more real. You always hear that saying like 20s is the time to explore and find yourself. Um, and try out everything. And the idea that your 20s is kind of your foundation for your life. Like most cases, whatever you do in your 20s will set you up for whatever happens in your 30s and 40s. So it was just the idea kind of setting in, and also in combination with times moving fast and I'll never be young again. Well, even though I'm still young, that's silly to say, right? But um, yeah, I'll never be young, no responsibilities.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I think you said it perfectly where it's starting to get real. I think that's one sentence to kind of sum up getting older. It's starting to get real. I think, I remember, I mean, we had a friend in high school. Um, I remember sending you a video when it was your birthday. It was during senior year. And it was him saying happy birthday
Mhm.
to you, and then him saying 1 year closer to death, and at the time, it was obviously funny. It still
I
is
remember
funny to
that.
think about, but I think
Yeah.
that really does sum up getting older. It's starting to get real, 1 year closer to death, right? But also, I do want to say that what you talked about in terms of uncertainty and your 20s being a decade of foundation building, I think that really is, well, I wouldn't say it's the right way to spend your 20s, right? I think it's a very people spend their 20s how they want to spend their 20s. Some people spend their 20s partying, living it up essentially, but I think for me, I view my 20s like, as you said, the foundational years, and honestly, I am scared though. I am scared. I don't even know what I'm going to do after I graduate from college. I think that's the big question for anybody in college, really. What do you want to do after college? Do you want to take a chance on yourself and go pursue your dreams? Work your 9 to 5 and then use your 9 to 5 to fuel your 5 to 9 or 5 to 10.
Mhm.
And for me, I don't know. I've always been someone who try likes to try multiple things. So I'm really, I don't know. I'm really at a loss of words, to be honest. I just don't know how I feel about turning 20. You know what I mean? I've never, I don't know. When someone asks you how you're going to feel when you turn 20, or what are your goals for 20, it's like, I don't know. To me,
I'm just living.
yeah, I'm just living. I don't know. I'm right now. I just view every single day as a gift. I don't think that I
Mhm.
should only limit a celebration of life to your birthdays. I think every day that you're given of life, you know, by God is a blessing. It's a blessing. I think every day is you should have gratitude to be alive every day, no matter what. And I, having conversations like these, you know, even if, like I've mentioned, we've talked about this multiple times, but even if this podcast doesn't necessarily blow up, right? It's just cool to kind of, look back on these episodes, right? It's like a video diary documenting our life and
Mhm.
our life experiences. And I think that is that is what life is all about. I know we're kind of steering away, but I mean, I wanted to ask you though, what are your goals for, well, your 20s? I mean, you have already turned 20, you're 20 right now, but what are your goals for your 20s
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah, like I said, you know, 20s is time to build your foundation. That is one of my goals to, once I graduate college or even now, like this is why we're podcasting. I'm just trying so many things, trying to get something to stick. Um, and I'm trying my hardest, right? But I think the satisfaction once something does hit I throw a dart and I get the middle of the board. Um, it's gonna feel great. But I think overall, building the skills, like for example, this podcast, I have to talk. Um, Dylan knew me back in school. When I was younger, I wasn't the best talker at all. I'm still not, but it's getting there, right? So just skills like communication. I never read before high school or before college. Started reading, and just overall trying to be a sponge, soak in information from these podcasts as well. Because we've had doctors on, Dylan's sister. We had a tennis player that you guys will see soon. Uh, we just had a variety of people, and they just bring on lessons. And for us, like this is honestly sometimes we just sit back and we're the student, sit back, learn from people. Everybody has their own trajectory and their own paths that they've traversed through life, and they bring it to us, and we dissect it, and just overall learning from stuff, trying new things, and trying to get something to stick. That's my goal. But obviously, like a definite goal is to obviously, be financially set by the time I'm like 23, 24. And I'm not talking like 1 million, 2 million. Like, obviously that's a goal. I'm trying to get there, but I have to have a house and be able to provide for myself for that to happen. So once I graduate college, I'm gonna move out of this apartment, and it's gonna be time to move out somewhere. So I just want to be set somewhere to work. But those are my main goals for 20.
Yeah, those are great goals. My goals kind of align with yours. I actually do align with yours in terms of setting myself up for the future. I think a definite goal of mine is for my 20s is to focus. I think your 20s are it's so easy to get distracted in your 20s. From what I've seen, at least I'm not 20 yet. I turned 20 in 6 days, but from what I've heard and I've seen from other people in their 20s, via Instagram or people who are in their 20s that I've had the fortunate opportunity of talking to and coming across, it's very easy to get distracted in your 20s and get caught up in the drama of other people you choose to surround yourself with. Um, it's generally common for people in their 20s to, or at least from what I've seen, um, to go clubbing, partying, indulge in instant gratification. And I know it's something that a lot of people don't want to hear, but I think if there's one practice, I think, or one idea to keep inside your head to specifically in your 20s, especially, right? That'll heavily, I think, dictate your success is the idea of long-term gratification. I think so many people get caught up with wanting the awards right away, wanting the pleasure now, wanting everything right now, that most people give up what they want later for what they want now. And I think that's the most detrimental thing you could do to yourself because in the moment it might feel good to go out, get drunk, and get hungover every single chance you're given, every single weekend, right? But at the end of the day, though, I think life is more than that. Life is it's more than that. Um, that's my goal for my 20s is to just really dial in, lock in, and when I say dial in and lock in, it doesn't necessarily mean that I cut out any fun, any form of fun like hanging out with friends and just living, being a human being, connecting with other individuals. Going to the beach, hanging out with friends. That's not what I say. That's not what I mean when I say focus and dial in. What I mean is, life is all about trade offs. I think it's important to always evaluate every decision you make in life, always evaluate all of your sacrifices that you're making. Because at the end of the day, right, no matter what choice you make, you're always going to have to sacrifice something. I mean, when you look at what Ohm and I are doing right now with this podcast by sitting here at 8:30 at night filming this podcast episode, we're sacrificing time right now, whether we
We have
realize it or
homework
not.
right after.
Homework, yeah, we got homework right after, but you have to squeeze in those things that you're committed to, and you have to stay locked into the mission and don't don't let anything get in the way of that. So that is my main goal of my 20s. It's very general. It's not very nothing fancy like other people say, with their 20s of, I want to get a six pack, I want to get a Lamborghini by the time I'm 25, or make 2 million by the time I'm 25. I know it's not the most flashy goal, but I think you know those things will be a byproduct of locking in and focusing, right? So that's my definite goal of turning in my 20s, I mean, and I'm excited. I'm excited, but a little nervous though. Excited, but a little nervous, because like Ohm said, it's getting real. Adulthood. Well, I'm technically already an adult, but you know, your 20s is really when the reality of adulthood starts to set in and become more prominent. So I'm I'm looking forward to it. And also, you know what? Who knows? Who knows? Anything could happen in life, right? Anything could happen in life. This podcast could blow up within the next year or two. Who knows? That's why Owen and I are starting now, and I'm having a blast so far. It's great, and sometimes,
Mhm.
some episodes aren't, you know, the best, but other episodes are the best. But I think it's all about, you know, trending upwards, trending upwards at least. And um, although, like said, I'm not part of the reason why we started this podcast is to develop our communication skills, not only with one another, but also, in front of a camera because, you're
That's the name of the game
it's the name of the
now.
game, articulating your thoughts, right? I mean, it's the world is really, we're living in a very technological world nowadays. So, one way or another, you're going to have to talk in front of a camera eventually, um, no matter the circumstance or no matter what that circumstance is. So, um, but I'm looking forward to my 20s, looking forward to the growth. But I also wanted to ask you too. Speaking of like fears of turning 20 or like being in your 20s, I mean, do you have any fears in particular for your 20s?
Do I have any fears? Yeah, you know, I'm lucky enough to have both of my parents in my life. Um, but like I said, we've probably mentioned it so many times now, but it's it's a real part of our lives right now. But you know, my parents have health scares. Like they're not the healthiest people in the world, so I don't know. My fear is one of them passing away, but me not knowing what to do because you know, obviously you have to figure out one way or another, but there's always those things like taxes or like your home, how you handle the finances of that. I'm scared that me and my sister aren't equipped to do that well. And obviously, like, I have my mom, right? My mom's healthier than my dad, but at the same time, my dad just knows a lot more about the income and like how everything's distributed, how to take care of certain, funds and everything. And my mom doesn't know. And obviously, my grandparents there on the foreign side, right? So I'm just scared that I'm gonna have to fend for myself one of these days. And I don't know. I think one way I'm trying to alleviate that fear is talking more to my dad right now, and you know, besides having fun with him, having talking about like sports or whatever, his interests. Um, Also talking about business, which he's very interested in, but talking about how to manage home, how do trusts work, how do all this stuff work. How does it operate? That's that's one way I'm trying to alleviate that fear because one thing I do if someone does go in my family, I want to be strong. Like I want to, obviously I'm not gonna be not a human. Like I'm gonna cry probably. Like let's be real, but um, you just gotta get back up and keep it moving because if you don't, then what's gonna
I have, yeah, my fears are kind of the same way too. I mean, my dad is, like O mentioned, we've mentioned it many times in other podcast episodes, but my dad is also going through a health scare. Both of our parents are going through health scares right now. Both of our dads, I mean, and there's a lot of uncertainty for both of our families, um, with both of our dads' health, and that's the main fear I have is, will I be strong enough to be able to step up and take care of the family when the time comes? Um, Also, I think even will I be strong enough to take care of myself? When I think I, everybody's going to go through grief eventually, at one point in their life, at least one point in their life. Um, and from what I've seen, right, the worst cases of grief tend to revolve around people who become severely depressed to the point where they can't even take care of themselves, can't even feed themselves, can't even go to work, and can't even function really. I mean, grief is really, it's a really powerful thing. And I'm scared I'll be like that, but I think that's why it's very important to have these conversations, right? It's a way for me to vent out my fears and thoughts. But I also, I trust myself too to be able to handle whatever comes and whatever gets thrown in my way. And I think it's a very important, crucial, and healthy mindset to have in life in general, regardless of whether you're going through a great or rough time. Um, yeah, I Look, my dad is. I'll be honest. My dad is turning 70 in April. He's 69 right now, and it's my dad is on the older side for being a dad for someone my age. He's on the older side. Um, I had this conversation with my sister. I don't think I've ever actually told you this before. Or maybe I have. I don't know. We've had a lot of deep talks. I mean, I probably told you mostly everything about me and my personal situation, but
Yeah.
but I think I'll share it here because it heavily applies to what we're talking about. We were driving home one night. I was driving home one night with my sister, and we had a deep discussion about our dad and how him getting older, right? And we really just had that brother and sister bonding moment where we reflected on our family struggles, right? I mean, I don't think there's anything that brings a family closer than struggle. Specifically siblings. If you're close knit, like both my sister and I are, and like Ohm and his sister are. Um, and somehow the conversation got brought up. We were just talking about my dad's health and how tough it was to see him get older, how tough it was to see our parents get older, both of our parents, but in that moment specifically our dad. And um, I told my sister, I don't know why. It's just like I just like bringing up random topics. Just sometimes they're so sad, but I just told my sister out of the blue. I was like, you know what I realized? Dad's probably not going to be there for my wedding, and that that kind of made me like really, well, not kind of. It made me sad. And my sister just said, "Listen, I don't want to talk about it, but I mean, it's it's probably the reality. To be honest, there's no other way around it, right? And I mean, unless I get married within the next year or so,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, but that's definitely not going to happen. Um, but yeah, that's my fear. I have a fear of losing my parents. I'll be honest, I do. Specifically in this situation, present time, my dad specifically. I have a fear of losing him because he's my everything. My dad. My parents got divorced when I was, I think, 3, and my mom moved away to Arizona from California when I was in 7th grade, and she gave me the choice to either stay here with my dad in California or to go move with her and leave California. And I just couldn't leave my dad. I couldn't leave my dad. I couldn't leave California. California's my home. I couldn't leave my friends here. I couldn't leave the school that I went to. I just couldn't leave any of it. So I chose to stay here. And in the moment, it was the most painful decision I could ever make as a 7th grader, as a however old you are in 7th grade. But it was tough. It was very tough. I don't think any young kid should have to make that decision to either go be with their mom or stay with their dad, but it was tough. And in the moment, I questioned whether or not I made the right decision because I missed my mom heavily, as any young kid would. But looking back on it now, I made the best decision. I made the best decision I could have ever made in the moment, and I'm so grateful for staying here with my dad. And I think it's very, very crucial for sons specifically to have that connection with their father. I think there's nothing that beats a bond between a son and a father. And listen, that doesn't go to say that, sons can't have a special bond with their mother, but the bond between a father and a son is something else. It's it's in its own realm. It's in its own realm. And I know Ohm can testify to that. I know my our good friend Sam can testify to that. I have many friends who have great connections with their father, fortunately, and the bond between a father and a son is something special. So that's my fear of my 20s. And I'm the reason why I'm articulating these fears, why I asked Owen about his fears as well, is because I think obviously there are other kids who are also around the same age as we are, or who are also just people get older. People are getting older in general, right? And but specifically we're targeting the kids who are turning 20 and who are getting into that realm of adulthood, who may have a lot of uncertainties. But I want this episode to be a medium for both Ob and I to kind of speak to those individuals who are fearful of getting older, who are fearful of turning 20, and to let you know that you're not alone. You're not alone. I mean, listen, there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? The likelihood of you being the only one that you're going, the likelihood of you being the only person in the world out of 8 billion people who's going through the exact problems you are going through right now is is none. It's impossible. It's impossible. There's 8 billion people on the planet. So I just wanted to make this to tell you guys this to comfort you guys, to let you know that listen, I don't have all the answers. I'm sure Elm doesn't have all the answers. We're just living life and just taking the punches as they come along. That's it. And we're just adapting along the way. That's what humans do. We adapt, or that's what humans should do at least. I know some people who don't adapt and their life turns to complete shambles and they wonder why, but the right response to those tough times is to adapt and just to handle and take the punches and make the adjustments. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add in, like, for people who are having their parents grow older, obviously, um, I think my biggest advice, and you probably are, people already know what it is, but it's definitely spend as much time as you can with them, learn from them. I know, like, personally, I didn't like my mom's my mom, but I don't like I didn't know her come up story, like the way she grew up. I didn't know how my dad grew up, and I sat down with them one night, and I asked them all these questions, like a dark hour, bright future type questions. I asked them questions, and I got to learn more about them. So I think having those interactions, if you can, if they're in your life and you have a good relationship with them, definitely talk to them, spend time with them. One of my biggest regrets was when I was, obviously, like, my 17, 18-year-old self, like, I love my friends and I spent like every waking second with them. But I think one of my biggest regrets was, like, I don't remember what my family interaction was during that 2 years. Like, I don't think I never saw my mom. Like, my mom and dad are hardworking people. They go to work like most of the parents out there. Um, I never really got to talk to them. So I think definitely make those moments with them, have those deep conversations with them if you can. That's my biggest advice. And then once they go, I think you'll be a little bit more. I don't know if you would be more prepared. I don't think anyone's prepared for it, but um, at least you won't have the regret of not making the most.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny you bring that up about being in your teenage years, 17, 18, 16, 17, 18, and kind of looking back with a sense of regret about, kind of feeling guilty for prioritizing your friends over your family in a way, or at least that's how I felt, or that's the impression that I got from your story that you just shared,
Yeah,
and
no,
that I feel the exact same way. It's funny because like I was really thinking about that, like the before we shot this podcast episode, and I was thinking the exact same thing, and I I look at what my dad's going through right now, and it's kind of I feel terrible. I have a really bad problem with overthinking and overanalyzing. Ohm knows that's my friend. I'm sure you can agree. Like I have a really
uh,
terrible um overthinking, overanalyzing problem. Whether that be for towards the future or towards the past, or any decisions I made in the past, any actions I've committed in the past, any actions I'm committing right now, every decision I make right now, it's everything. And with my dad, of course, me being the overthinker that I am, I think of all the worst possible things that could happen. I think about all the times that I've talked back to him, all the times that you know, I've treated him horribly sometimes. I wasn't the best son at times. I just wasn't the best person overall at times. And I look back and I feel guilty. I feel very guilty. Very, very guilty. And it haunts me sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. It keeps me up at night because it makes me think to myself, you know, it sucks. I feel like I deserve it. I feel like, whatever's happened to my dad is some form of punishment towards me in a way, but, but, I voiced these regrets towards to my dad, and he told me, people make mistakes all the time in life, kids especially. Kids always talk back to their parents. Kids always make mistakes. Like, it's part of growing up, and the fact that you have that realization that what you did was wrong, you're aware of your wrongs, that's all that matters. And all that matters now moving forward is becoming a better person and learning from your mistakes. So how am I learning from my mistakes? How am I trying to become a better person? Well, for one, having these deep and vulnerable conversations with Ohm for our podcast, trying to share our lessons and trying to share our mistakes that we've made in our own lives so that other people can, number one, know that they're not alone if they have committed the same mistakes. And B, number two, know that, you know, we've all screwed up in our lives. Nobody's perfect, we're all screw ups to a certain degree. And also I want people to learn from our mistakes too, and try to avoid making the same mistakes that we did. But you know, yeah, I love my
Yeah.
dad, and I know I love my parents. Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to circle back because I wanted to connect it back. I want to actually bring up something that your dad said.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you like the quote, but that's actually
Mm-hmm.
one of the quotes I've heard that actually kind of shifted my perspective, because I do have a problem with looking back and like, well, the time's gone. But when I do remember this quote, it kind of helps. Is when you drive a car, you don't drive looking back. You check the back every once in a while to reflect on where you've been, or how far you've come and where you're heading. Or I mean, yeah, like where you came from. But then you just got to look forward.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think turning 20 and just your 20s in general, it's a period to learn, it's a period to grow. And it's a period to make things right. If you, like I said, if you regret something that you did in the past with your parents, you could try to fix a relationship while they're here. Um, if you were a bad talker back then, you could work on those skills now. And everything you do, if you try to fix everything or try to overall become a better person, it's going to help you in the long run. I think that's also the beauty of getting older, is that you start realizing these things and wanting to do these things.
Yeah. Just keep moving forward. Just keep moving
Yeah,
forward. It's that
essentially,
simple. It's that
essentially.
simple. It's you know, yeah. My dad's a genius for coming up with that quote. No, no, no. But no, but no, he's definitely not the first person to come up with that quote. But it when he told me that, right, it hit me. It hit me hard, and I kind of got emotional hearing that, right? Because it's what everybody needs to hear. It's what everybody needs to hear. I think the past generally, if not the majority of the time, is what holds people back from really becoming that version of themselves that they strive to be. It's the past. It's what's happening in the past. You're letting the past define you. And I know it's cliche because you hear it time and time again from all of these self improvement videos. Don't let your past define you. You are not defined by your mistakes in the past. But it really is true. It really is true. And, you know, I'm really glad that, I didn't know that the quote affected you that much, Om. So I'm glad,
Mhm.
you brought that up because I'm thinking about it right now and it's already making me feel better. But yeah,
That's good.
essentially just keep moving forward. Don't let your mistakes define you. I mean, that's the mentality that Owen and I are trying to implement into our own lives with this podcast, with every decision we make towards building a better future for ourselves. Um, any mistake that we know we're going to commit in the future, because mistakes are a part of life. There's no running away from that part. You're going to make a mistake one way or another. Just hope it's not a really terrible mistake. Um,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, just keep moving forward. I don't have anything else to say. I don't have anything else to say, to be honest. Just keep moving forward, and I'm so glad my dad shared that with me. I mean, speaking of which, though, speaking of advice from our fathers, right? What advice has your dad given you that has stuck with you in your head?
That's a great question. My dad and I, he we don't really have that many deep conversations. Um,
Mm,
just because I don't know, I don't think he's in tune with his feelings, and that's natural. I don't think his feelings. He didn't really have deep talks when he was younger, so he doesn't know how to express a lot. But um, that's hard. I think definitely one of them. One thing he has said to me, and it wasn't like insanely deep. You hear it time and time again, but it was his first time. It was my first time hearing him say that. He's like, people are going to try to hold you back because a little background on my dad, really quick, just really quick. Uh, my dad, he dropped out of college and he started a business at 20. Like right now, at my age, he had a business. He was managing the building, like you know, LLCs, all of that. And everyone was like, "No, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out." And business after business, my dad literally tried like 10 businesses, and then he finally got one to stick, which is the one we have now. And people were looking at him like he was crazy. Yeah, we lost a lot of money, but he's the definition of try, just keep trying. And yeah, now we're set. We're financially set. I have an apartment that I've split half of it up, but like I'm blessed. He did his hard work paid off. Um, so I saw his. I showed you I showed you Dylan the newspaper of him when he was 20. Um, that was like, wow, anything's possible if you just keep trying. And don't let age define you. That's basically what he was trying to get at, and that stuck with me a lot, especially during our past business adventures. And now even it's like we're 20, we're podcasters, not as common as older people, like you know 25, 26, but we've had some good episodes so far. We have the ball rolling. Nothing could stop us.
yeah, I agree. And speaking of trying too, right? And how it applies to our 20s. I have a really big fear, and I've expressed this to you many times. We both have a mutual fear, have the same fear. We both have a fear of living a mediocre life. I have a fear of living an average life. And when I say average, I don't mean that I have a need to be famous or, to be heavily publicized in any way or be in the news all the time. It's not what I mean. What I mean by average is not pushing my limits, not breaking those boundaries, not breaking those self-limiting beliefs in any way. From what I've seen, from the people that I've come across who are in their 20s, I've seen so many people in their 20s take the easy way out of life. Choose the safe and the comfortable path, the comfortable choice. And while there's nothing wrong with that, there's nothing wrong with security. I think part of life is kind of transcending boundaries, transcending um breaking those limits. That's the fear that I have. The fear that I have is not doing those things. I can't imagine working a 9 to 5 job, sitting in a cubicle or just anything 9 to 5 related. I can't imagine myself doing that. And listen, I don't say that trying to bash on anybody who works a 9 to 5 job and takes any enjoyment out of it. If you enjoy working a 9 to 5, that is you go. There's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy it, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we need people who work 9 to 5 jobs. We need those people. Um, but for me personally, I just can't. I can't imagine myself working a 9 to 5. I don't know. I saw this. Owen and I talk about this all the time, right? I honestly I don't know how to express this, right? But this is the best way I can explain it. Since I graduated high school, um, a little more than a year and a half ago, I this fear of time started looping in my head. And I know we mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast, but I want to like dive deeper into it a little bit. I won't, it won't take too much time. This fear of time really started to kick in. This fear of time and knowing that, well, number one, holy smokes, I just graduated high school, right? My K through 12 years are done. And the thing about your K through 12 years is that you always knew what the next step was: kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. But after you graduate high school, what's next? College? Some people don't go to college. But what's after college? That's when it gets real. You just don't know what's going to happen. For me, the fear revolved around not living my life to the fullest. That sounds really cliche. That sounds corny because everybody says the same thing over and over again. Live life to the fullest, bro. Live life to the fullest. But it really is true. I don't. I just have a fear of not living my life to the fullest, and for me, maybe this podcast is a medium to combat that fear, to work against that fear by talking to so many people from so many different backgrounds, gaining different perspectives on life, right? Because I think that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, regardless of whether or not this podcast blows up, which I have confidence that it will, Ohm and I, either way, will gain an immense amount of fulfillment and satisfaction from recording these types of videos, documenting our experiences in life, documenting the human experience as a whole, and documenting our connections that we're forming with other people. And this is what life is all about, right? Pushing yourself to do things that only so many people could dream of doing. That is my life motto right there. Even if the odds are stacked against me, I'm still going to go for it. Because at the end of the day, what else can you do? Just give up? Like, what does that say about yourself? What does that say about the respect that you have for yourself as an individual? Just go for it, even if the odds are against you, right? You know, even if the odds are against you, you have nothing to lose. Just go for it. And listen, this is the sad thing too, right? Is that I've seen a lot more self improvement content in general, self improvement influencers and YouTubers and TikTokers and podcasters, right, have been on the rise. It's like a new trend that's rising. And what really sucks is that you can tell that not all, but some of these self improvement content creators are actually making their content with good intentions behind them, not with ill intentions, trying to scam their viewers into buying their courses in any way. It's some of them actually want to genuinely help their viewers out. But the thing about it though is that when I look at the comment sections of these self improvement videos, the comments in the comment section of these self improvement videos, I just see hate. Why are you hating on someone who's trying to help you? It doesn't make any sense. Even if that person is putting on a fake persona and facade, right? And he's talking to you about how you should always be strong and you should have a six pack, go to the gym and take care of your body. Get 8 to 9 hours of bed of sleep every single night. Even if he's not doing those things himself, but he's preaching those pieces of advice, why are you hating on him or her? They're just trying to help you. So to me, that's one of my fears, actually, tying back to the fear question. I know we're bouncing all over the place, but one of my fears of this podcast is kind of receiving that hate a little bit, right? Because that's the thing about the internet is the internet's so uncertain. People can take things wrong in so many ways, but you can't pay attention to those things. You just have to go for it. And listen, as O mentioned, right, we're both putting ourselves in deep waters right now with this podcast. We're both putting ourselves out there, and it's very, very uncomfortable. In fact, I'm kind of nervous talking in front of a camera right now. I'm going all over the place, as you can tell, but I know that it's bettering me as an individual at the end of the day, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, you're fulfilling the goal of one main goal of being
Yeah,
20, just better yourself. Yeah, we're doing it right now. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Um, I don't think Omen and I mentioned this in our very first solo episode, but we wanted to keep these solo episodes short for you guys, around like the around 50 minutes, 45 minutes to 50 minutes long, because we kind of just viewed these solo episodes as a way for both Owen and I to, check in with one another in front of a camera, even though we do that off camera all the time. But it's also a way for us to, we pick a certain topic, one topic in particular for each solo episode, and we just dive into that topic and really just vent out our thoughts and feelings towards that topic. So, for example, with this solo podcast episode, we talked about turning 20, our thoughts on turning 20, our thoughts of being in our 20s, and, how we ultimately feel about that. And there's just so many different avenues you can go down with that topic. And, we hope that you guys enjoy these solo episodes, but there will definitely be more solo episodes to come without a doubt. And I look forward to just really bettering my communication skills. I'm freaking nervous right now, but it is what it is. Owen and I
It's all about being uncomfortable, man.
it's all about being uncomfortable. We're bettering ourselves. And yeah.
Other than that, we have nothing else for you guys today. Check out our Unfiltered because we we talk more about that's actually another avenue that we use to better ourselves and also help better you guys, provide you guys content. So check out our Unfiltered videos. We're gonna be everywhere. We're on all platforms now, so uh, definitely tune in everywhere else, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.